tuck the right side under. But they have to be balanced. Okay, if they pick that up and they're comfortable, because at least my athletes, even in college, you know, when I call it a static start. All right, when in discus and shot put, whatever, especially if we're doing rotation, I won't let them do any movement. They got to move out of this position. Okay. So it teaches them right away they're on balance, they're not moving, they're not going to start shifting their balance. But they have to move without any movement from right to left or any wind or anything like that. It teaches them to really stay balanced at the back of the circle here, okay? Or if they have the discus, lots of times they're going to hold it up like this so it doesn't fall, but they get no wind or nothing. And it's really going to teach them to be balanced upon their entry as they're coming out of the back of the circle. And they all hate it because they feel like they have absolutely no momentum, right? But they end up in a superior power position, and almost always the implement goes farther, okay? Because they've efficiently, even though they don't feel like they're moving very fast, they moved a lot more efficient, a lot more on balance. They end up in a much better power position because of it. And those are the things that create the far throws. If they get a little bit more experienced and they have balance, maybe they're in junior or senior year or something like that, you can experiment with what I call a dynamic start glide, all right? There's a couple of things you can do. You can start low, kind of rise up and rock back into it, or you can start tall and come down and rock back into it like that, okay? So you'll see a lot of gliders that start in this position. This left is back, they kind of move that left, they rise, and then they come back, okay? The ones that are the best at it are very effective at making sure they really take the time to get their hips back down and then a long glide through the circle, okay? Lots of times if you have a kid that's inexperienced that's doing that, all you're gonna see out of that is right back up. Because, you know, for a reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? So, if they're inexperienced, it's going to be down and up. You want low hips through the circle, and you want to watch for that if you're watching video with them or something. How high do their hips rise? When you watch a good glider, it's that plane, you know, like that, but you don't want to see big jumps like that with their hips. Once they start going tall, then they start going forward. We're trying to stay back pretty much as long as we can. Okay. For a rotational shot and discus, again, the back of the circle is going to make or break you. All right. Balance is absolutely critical. So the things that I talk about the most, even at this level, practice is spent, 80% of practice is spent executing the back of the circle or the start of the throw. If you don't start the throw properly, you're not going to end the throw properly, right? So what I'm looking for, right, is if they're winding or not, if you're going to have them do a static start or have them wind, inevitably what they need to do is they need to get their weight transferred to their left side without pulling their shoulder into the middle, okay? And that's the biggest thing that even world-class throwers do still, is rush the start of the throw, okay? So the thing that I'm always looking for, and if they're discus throwers, you know, again, all you need is one wind, okay? Don't let them, you don't need to sit here. This is doing nothing for them. This is not going to make them throw farther, okay? Okay, one controlled smooth wind like this. I'm looking for a long left side, and I'm looking for this T position in my wind, okay? Right now, I have probably 70% of my weight on my right side, all right? But what I need to emphasize right here is just being patient in moving that way. We want to come back this way before we move that way. We're trying to set up a really long path, okay? A long path with our levers themselves, but then a long path for the discus to follow as it's moving through its orbit of the throw, okay? So, again, I have about 70% of my weight on my right side here, and so this is what I'm gonna kind of emphasize right here. Hitting that middle, and then getting to the left side like this. I'm always looking for armpit, knee, and toe to be in line as I come out of the back of the circle, okay? So armpit, knee, and toe, that's one of my biggest cues that I'll use, and that's one of the things that you guys as coaches can watch for the most. Because what they're gonna wanna do is start pulling here, right? Head's gonna go that way. This shoulder's coming inside this hip. Now the disc is in front of the whole system, okay? So when they do that, they cut this path short out of the back. They step and fall to the middle like this. Now once they have fallen on this side, they have to start moving all of their upper body in order to come into that position, okay? So what you're looking for, get them to the center, get them on their left side, and you're looking for a good balance to be able to turn and rotate around out of the back, okay? You want to keep this leg relatively wide and move them into the position so their hips are under them like this. Once they're in that position, okay, now they'll be able to keep rotating with the lower body without the upper body turning and getting ahead of them, okay, if they're on balance. But the thing they're going to want to do again is they're going to want to go right to the front of that throw, right to that power position, okay? So you got to slow them down a little bit, get them on balance out of the back in order to effectively hit the best power position and get the discus behind or the shot behind them if you're doing rotational shot. It's pretty much the same in rotational shot if you're going to teach a kid that. Okay? The only difference is they're in this position. You might have them down a little bit lower, but armpit, knee, toe centered on my left side. Okay? A lot of the drills that we use to work on that are just, I call it working the clock, or just turning drills around our left. It really teaches them to get balanced on their left side, okay? And so we'll just start kind of like doing 90-degree pivots like that, all right? Once they get a little more comfortable, move them to 180-degree pivots, okay? You can move them to 270, and move them all the way back around that left side, all right? But if they're not balanced on that left, okay, and once they first start doing that drill, you're going to see they're going to start doing that, or they're going to go like that, and that's not how you want them to do it either. You know, you want a nice, smooth, long rotation around the left. So when you first start doing that drill, what they'll do is, they'll do it like that. Well, when they do it like that, the first thing that's happening is like this. You know, they've put all their weight into this position, and they think they're getting around, but they're not. If they try and execute a throw like that, it's over before it even starts, you know. So, trying to get them balanced and centered on that left side out of the back of the circle, okay? In rotational shot and in discus, you can do some broken up movements. Some half turns. Does everyone know what a half turn is? Okay, all right, so half turn, you're starting basically in a power position facing the direction of the throw, right? And then you're gonna end up in the power position that you would throw out of. So you're winding like this, you're back in this position, and you're just, the emphasis here is what's going on in the middle of the circle, okay? So you'll start them in that position. How I like to do that is kind of one wind like this, or in shot put, I just kind of stay in this position, no wind at all, okay? Discus, one wind, I like to start with my weight back on my left, because one of the things that they're gonna do is they're gonna go like this, and they're gonna, once they put themselves in this position, there's no weight back on the left leg to move, so they're gonna stand up and try and get around using their upper body. So put some weight back on their left, get a good push out of of this left leg, okay? Push him into that position, clear the left, execute the throw, okay? To work on the back of the circle and the movement across the circle out of the back, you can do what's called a South African drill. So you've put them now in this part of the throw where they've made their 90-degree pivot. Now we're going to start moving horizontally across the circle, right? So they're just basically starting in that position. They're going to move to the middle, into the stand throw, and then out of the stand throw position. Okay? And you can do that in a rotational shot as well. One of the things to watch for in this drill itself is the direction that they're moving out of the back of the circle, because almost all of them are going to want to go like this and step that way. Watch this right hip and watch the direction that their hips and their chest are moving to, okay? You want to keep them moving forward towards the throw, okay? Almost always with this drill, unless the coach corrects it, they put the shot or they put the disc over here, and now it's going to be in front of them when they land in the power position, okay? So keep them moving in the line that they want to move in. But that's going to be to emphasize, you know, the horizontal movement across the circle, and lots of times an athlete will be much better at that than they will out of the full turn. For some reason, you know, this 90-degree turn here is what kind of messes everyone up and is the most difficult part of the throw to master and to get right. Okay. Any questions so far? We're about 15 minutes left. Javelin. Should we talk about javelin at all? We all coach jav. Okay. Jab, I really don't think is any different than shot and disc in terms of, you know, what you do at the back. It's going to be what you do at the front, but so many similarities between discus throwing, shot putting, and actually javelin throwing. As we all know, you know, it's the same in disc and shot. When you know, if you cut off your right side, then it's not going to move forward and into the throw, right? So glide shot putter, and actually we'll do med ball drills for the javelin throwers that they just, you know, they hold a ball like this, do some crossovers, and they're turning into that position. I mean, that's the exact same as shot putting out of this position, okay? Shot putting and discus throwing, there's still a block at the front of the throw. It's very similar to the block in the javelin. It's just a little bit different of an impact, and I'll call it more of a post in shot put and discus than in jab. But one of the things that I'm looking for the most with the javelin is the rhythm from the approach and the run-up into the crossovers, and then how does that transition look, okay? If I can get them relatively smooth with a little bit of rhythm into the transition where they draw back, and I understand at your guys' level too, maybe a lot of them are starting in crossovers, so we'll talk about that, but even there, the rhythm is, in my opinion, so important and often overlooked in what they're doing. So, positionally, in crossover phase, what I'm looking for is a lot of control with the javelin, okay? And that's one of the biggest, I think, issues with a lot of beginners is the jab's kind of moving everywhere. When they're running, no matter how they are from the back to the front, watch the jab and look at the level of the jab. You'll see the jab kind of bouncing and moving all around a lot, right? But you want kind of the most steady line that you can get to the front of the runway, okay? And so I'm always looking for the point at at this level, and almost all beginning javelin throwers tend to drop this arm and lay back on the throw a lot, and that tends to dip the jab, and then we know that doesn't create the right flight of the jab that we want, right? So I'm always looking for a steady jab through the movement, and looking for the jab to stay pretty parallel with the shoulders through the movement, okay? All right, so when they come off an impulse into their movement, this is right where everyone really wants to start leaning back and dropping that position, okay? So make sure as they move off of impulse, you're looking for the jab to stay level with their shoulders through that movement, and as much as you can, try not to drop the shoulder too far behind this right hip, because then what they're going to have to start doing is reaching for the front, and that's going to create this teeter-totter movement at the back, okay, or on the delivery of the throw, okay. So as they come off of impulse, posture's trying to stay in this position, they land on the right, they move into the left, this is what I'm looking for, okay. I'm not looking for this kind of like big wind up lean back throw, okay. The still positions that you see if you're watching javelin videos at the front of the throw, and the positions that those throwers are in, I always refer to those as reaction positions to the movement that they're creating, all right? So I'm not trying to emphasize the back bend or anything like that. If you watch a good thrower, once they move into that, then the reaction happens, okay? And we're always in javelin, we're talking about staying back, being patient, keeping the arm long and all of that stuff. No different than shot and disc. They want to get that thing out as fast as they can, you know what I mean? And especially in jab, you know, almost all these kids have grown up throwing some sort of a ball. So they want to throw it that way, you know what I mean? But you have to emphasize the patience of allowing, I call it allowing, you know, a stretch reflex to happen, all right? Instead of just getting to the front and trying to throw it with your arm. If you coached jab before, you know how that ends, you know? So if you get a gifted kid, then they might get away with it and might go 170 or 180 or something like that. If they do it too often, then it's probably not going to start to feel good for them. You know? So you're looking for a high hand finish instead of an outside, you know, finish. I want to see this elbow roll up here and come over the top of my throw like this, instead of coming here, being outside of these hips and throwing outside here, okay? The other thing that I'm really trying to emphasize off of impulse is trying to get my right side turned a bit more towards the direction of the throw. Okay, so when they're coming off to their penultimate step right here, I'm starting to kind of rotate my right foot, my knee, and my hip into that throw, so I avoid this at the front, okay? And you're gonna see almost every inexperienced javelin thrower do that, okay? They're gonna land on this right, and then they're just gonna kind of push like that into this position, okay? So, as they move off of their crossovers into their penultimate step, okay, start emphasizing, starting to get things turned towards the direction of the throw. Now my right foot, my right knee, and my hip is moving towards that. My left side's already here, so I can move into that position right there. And the left side, in my opinion, is very similar to a shot and disc, and what it's doing, okay? This side has to kind of turn and rotate too, all right? And it needs to if you want the right side to come over the top. If it doesn't, the right side's gonna come outside just like it does in discus, you know what I mean? So as they move through, you're trying to get this left side into position like that in this nice square chest, okay? And in javelin throwing, you know, you're moving very linear through this position too, so that's why it's important to kind of, I call it pre-turn this right foot and knee towards the direction of the throw, and that'll kind of help clear the left, so that the jab can come over the top and not outside. Okay. All right. What questions do we have? I know that was a crash course on like 3 throws right there. So. Anything about training? How I implement that, or how I would?
You had a whole bunch of kids that have never thrown before. That's what I got this year. I feel alright with the shot that just put Texas and we don't throw jab one over there.
Yeah.
Would you just try to get them comfortable with the crossovers?
Try to get them comfortable with the crossovers. Teach proper release mechanics. Okay. When I first started coaching javelin, that's what I was looking for, was angle of the jab versus angle of my shoulders. Okay. I'm trying not to put too much angle there. I want those pretty much parallel. Okay. And just holding it and moving with it. You know what I mean?
Like, am I doing too much if I try to teach them the full approach right off the bat?
Yes.
Just try to, like, they're all freshmen and sophomores, so I mean.
Right. Yeah.
Should I just focus on the crossover steps and the impulse step?
I would do that until they're comfortable with actually throwing the jab, and they can make a pretty good flight with it. Okay. And a pretty good flight with the jab is relatively, especially for a beginner, you're trying to get the jab to fly pretty flat. Okay. Don't throw it towards the ground and stick it right into the ground. You know, you want a high finish. You're trying to get the jab to fly pretty flat, especially if it's not flying very far. You know what I mean? I understand it has to stick, you know, but an 800 grams is pretty much going to stick. Girls might be a little bit different, but the high kind of flat throw is how you teach it. Okay, you want that thing flying as flat as you can. Once they start putting something on it, you know, the jab's designed to come down nose first. You know what I mean? So we're trying to keep it as flat as possible through the air so that it avoids, you know, taking that nose dive. So, but try and get out of standing there and sticking it right in front of them, because that's not reinforcing the right movement. They're gonna come here and they're gonna start pulling down on it like that, and the movement you want is up here and a high release into that position. You know what I mean?
Keeping your eyes up.
Keeping your eyes up. Yep. Chest up. Posture. Okay. Anything else? You guys can take my email, gdwatson@lsu.edu, if you have any questions or anything like that.